Okay, so let's talk about pigeon really quickly. Probably the thing I get asked about the most is whether or not the shin needs to be parallel to the front edge of your mat. The answer is no, it doesn't need to be. For my body, my tibia or my shin bone rotates a little bit too much in relationship to my knee. So the flexed foot parallel shin gives me better stability in my knee. So for a lot of people that I've worked with who have knee discomfort, the parallel shin actually seems to make a lot of them more comfortable. There are 1,000 things I can say about pigeon, but I just want to give you just the little pieces of food for thought. So the first thing is to consider is that it doesn't matter where the shin goes. It matters what you feel. So I'm just going to start this way to begin. This is 90-90, lovely pose. Same with figure four, does the same kind of thing, but the back leg is a little bit less involved in the equation. So in a traditional form of pigeon, my body, flex foot, shin forward. As I take my back leg back, I want to find my hip bones and have them be level or forward. You can tip to the side for sure. That feels good in your body, it feels good in your body. If the stretches, if the idea is to stretch the tissues in the back of the leg that's forward, so that outer edge of your glute, and this gives you a stretch, c'est la vie. If I wanted to work on things like splits, I care a little bit more about what that back leg is doing. Okay, so I want my hip bones facing forward. But I might need to prop up my hip in order for that to make sense. So I might put a blocker, a bolster, or something to the outer edge of my right hip. I'll turn this around in a second. And I might bring a secondary source of support for my forearms if I wanted to bring my chest down. Okay. This is a passive stretch. I'm not activating it. I can do an active pigeon thing later. Okay, so that's the first thing I just want to show you now from the back. I'm going to flip this way because more often than not, this back leg goes back, okay? And people tip to the side, and this leg does something that looks like this, and they fold forward. And my concern is that they're folding forward, and what often happens is that they get a little pinch in this hip crease, the front hip crease, or they're feeling nothing, and they're like, oh my God, I'm so flexible. This is wonderful. If you don't feel anything, it's not doing anything. So if you're looking to down regulate your nervous system, you can go into stretches that don't feel like they're doing anything because it makes you feel calm and restful. Great. But don't think that it's helping the body necessarily. So if I turn that in, I'm thinking about pushing a bit more of the weight into the baby toe edge of the leg that's behind me. When my hip bones are facing forward, I can think about maybe moving the hip crease of the front leg back a little bit and making sure there's no pinching in the top of that hip flexor. My side joint, my lower back, is in a neutral enough position. Well, it's in a back bend, so it's in some form of extension if I'm sitting upright. Here it's more neutral. When I tip off to the side, it just puts the pressure in a slightly different way. So some people might experience that when their hips aren't stacked, and they might not notice it when the hips aren't stacked, but there's a little discomfort in the lower back. Okay, so this is a more traditional alignment in pigeon, if that makes sense. Again, there are 4,000 ways to do pigeon, a lot of different variations, a ton of different bodies. Don't go into it if it's boring. And don't go into it if there's pinching and particularly closing angle discomfort. So in the inside of what's being stretched. So this area is being stretched. The outer edge of my hip, I want to feel that kind of sense of stretch happening here. This area is in compression. So if I'm feeling at my hip flexor, I don't want to continue to go into compression. There are ways that a yoga teacher can help you, or whoever that it is that you see or practice with, to give you a sense of that stretch without compression happening in your hip joint. The back leg, if it is back behind you, the hip flexor The hip is an extension, right? So it's being stretched in a more traditional variation, hence why it's often harder, and hence why we tend to lean off to the side, is that our hip flexors are not always super accommodating to stretchy. And so our body will default into something that feels easier. Anyways, that's my pigeon post today. Shoot me a message. Let me know if you have any further questions. I love doing these tutorial things for you.